Wasn't on the map. Fifth largest city in the state for 7 years. This is Jackson Square, the main historical district. It's still there today, this little section here. These dormitories are gone. There's a man that came here in 1943, said when he came here, he counted, there were men's dormitories and women's dormitories. He counted the number of them. There were 5 men and 10 for women. He thought that was pretty good odds. The average age was 27. And there was a lot of people met their mates there. Had the 9th largest bus system in the nation, 850 buses. Let me tell you another story about Lester Fox. Him and his brother saw an opportunity. They bought 100 buses and started them a bus line. He said those buses broke down every day. One day he was driving a wrecker, had a bus on the back behind his wrecker, and he was driving through a little town. He saw another one of their buses broke down. He pulled over, tied a log chain onto it, and pulled out into the road. The policeman said, "Lester, you can't do that." He stopped him and said, "Leave one of those buses and come back and get it." He said, "Besides, I want you to meet me in the courthouse on Monday morning." Now Lester's scared to death, told him to be there at 8:30. But at 8:30 on Monday morning, he showed up. Police officers in the hallway, he said, "Come to me, Lester." He took him down to the clerk's office and said, "Give us full driver's license." He was 14 years old when he got his driver's license. The bill Y-12 took $480 million. 22,000 people working on 1,152 Calutrons, and I'll tell you what a Calutron is in just a minute. And to make enough material to U-235 for a little boy and a little bit left over. That's what it looked like. This is the person that invented the Calutrons, Ernest Lawrence. This is what they look like. This is they call it a racetrack because of the oval shape. But between these magnets is where these vacuum chambers go, and each of them are individual batch process units, 22,000 people. Maybe 100 of them would have known what they were doing. The rest of them just do what they were told. Now here's the way a Calutron works. If you put that uranium in between those two magnets, it'll cause it to bend. And when it bends, it comes up to the top and you can catch it. Now think about this with me. I had 2 rubber bands hanging in my hand, and I put a ping pong ball on one and a golf ball on the other. I held it down to my side and I spun it real quick for a half a turn. That golf ball would stretch that rubber band further than the ping pong ball. So I'd get 2 arcs. That's what happened to uranium-235 and 238. 3 neutrons difference. That's enough difference in mass that when it gets turned by that magnet, it will separate and you can catch that 235. So they would catch it and they would pull that out, that little pocket out. Put it in small gold-lined coffee cup sized containers. Put 2 of them in a briefcase. Strap it to an Army lieutenant's arm. Dress him up to look like a salesman. Put him on a passenger train up to Chicago and out to Los Alamos. That's how every bit of the uranium for little boy got transported from Y-12 to Los Alamos. Now, interestingly enough, when those 2 people left Oak Ridge and they got to Chicago, they would transfer it to 2 other people who would take it out to Los Alamos. So the people at Los Alamos knew they were taking it up in Chicago, but they didn't know where it was coming from. People in Oak Ridge knew they were taking it to Chicago, but they didn't know where it was going. Typical of the kind of things that were done to keep the secrecy during the Manhattan Project. There was a shortage of copper during the Manhattan Project, so they borrowed 14,700 tons of silver and brought it down to use as electrical conductors. These are the coils for the alpha calutrons, the large ones. Now you don't know where this is, but I do. And notice that there's a chain link fence. That's all that was separating the public from $400 million worth of silver in the 1950s. We can't even keep the silver on copper wire, or the copper on the wires, electrical wires. Now they take it off even if it's energized. The Calutrons were operated by these young girls right out of high school, and I'm going to tell you more about them in a little bit. This one down here in the right-hand side, that's Gladys Owens. And if we get the sound working just right, we'll talk about Gladys here in a little bit, but this is what General Groves said about these young girls. Now, I couldn't say this today, ladies, so I'm quoting him, all right? Above all, I knew the labor supply of East Tennessee was of a very high order from the standpoint of willingness to work. And I knew that we had to use many female operators. Tennessee girls would be much more easily trained and would do better work than those of some other sections of the country. The principal reason for this was that the women here were not sophisticated. They hadn't been reared to believe they knew it all. Only Grove can get by with that. I could never do it today. Now this picture here is of the young ladies that are leaving the Y-12 at shift change. It's made by Ed Westcott, one of the, he was the photographer for the Manhattan Project, and without his images, I wouldn't have a show today, because everything you've seen so far, black and white images are made by Ed Westcott. Now, when we were finishing up one of these documentary films, we were trying to figure out how to wrap the thing up at the end. So what we were doing is we were looking for a closure, something that we could use at the end. We decided to use this picture. And what we decided to do was to remake this picture. So I want you to notice that these young ladies, oh, by the way, when we opened up the new facilities at Y-12 just recently, we had these ladies come back, all of them that I could find. I put this picture in the newspaper and said, if you're in this picture, let me know. We want to invite you back to Y-12. I had 5 of them identify themselves. This little lady here, the shortest one, that's Dorothy Coker. And this lady back here in the white collar, this one with the black sash. And this lady here with the coat over her arm, she was Miss Atomic Bomb in 1945. She was delighted to come back. Now, let me show you what we did to remake this film. Well, see, we put it right in front of the highly enriched uranium materials facility. And when we remade the picture, I want you to notice that there's this one man back here, Ed, standing in a pickup truck now, shooting this picture. And he's telling these ladies, walk toward me. And there's this one man standing there, he's not walking. So when we remade the picture, I put Ed Westcott in the picture. And I told him to stand still. Now that's me right behind him, walking, saying, don't walk, Ed, stand still. Because Ed was wanting to walk with the people too. But that's what we used to wrap up the documentary film. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Girls of Atomic City. Denise Carrington has written a book, an outstanding book. That the title of it is The Girls of Atomic City. And she saw this picture and saw it on the internet. And I write a newspaper column about the history of Y-12 each week. She read one of those columns. So she contacted me and said, Ray, I would like to interview those girls and write a book about it. And this is about 3 years ago. And being a columnist, I was looking for a story, so I already had the story written about Denise Carrington going to write a book about Oak Ridge. She said, and I want to do it quietly without any press. Oh, shoot, I had to hold that story for about 3 years. But I did, and what I did is I introduced her to the ladies that she interviewed. And she has made a wonderful book out of those interviews. Now, to be candid with you, I know one lady who is just the talk of the town, if you know what I mean. You know those people. And she knows everybody. So I introduced her to Denise. She introduced Denise to all these other people. So we had a really good connection there. That's Denise, and that's Bill Wilcox, the historian for the city of Oak Ridge until he passed away just a few weeks ago. And she also, this lady in the middle, down in the front, is Colleen Black. She's the one that introduced her to these other ladies. And there she is with Cindy Kelly and Denise at one of their events. And this is a book club in Oak Ridge, listening to us talk about Denise. There she is, so proud that it's been published.